But hold your thoughts for now, because you're going to want to listen to the next guest, because he is probably the best Politico in the business at analysis, at knowing everything. He's like a truffle pig for information. He's the absolutely irreplaceable, amazing, erudite Peter Cardwell. Hello, young Peter. How are you?
I'm very well, Alex. What an introduction. A truffle pig for information, my goodness.
Yeah, we don't often get to hang out together, you and I. We sort of always, basically, we can never be in the room at the same time, because if one's doing the shift, the other's doing the shift. So actually being able to...
I can confirm we're not the same person.
We're definitely not the same person. Oh, in my dreams to be as handsome as you, Peter. Although we do both love cats.
That is true.
Which means that we're, clearly the soundest people on earth. Now, what is the gossip, basically? What is going on? He's had this meeting. Has he managed to, do you think, persuade MPs in his party that actually rocking the boat right now is not advisable? Or is the writing on the wall?
I think it's actually both of those. It's both the writing is on the wall, but things aren't going to rock for a little while. I think this will calm down. You've got every member of the cabinet publicly backing him. Bizarre thing this evening that Wes Streeting has given all of his messages that he sent to Peter Mandelson, and Sky News have published them, which is a slightly weird development today among many weird developments, alongside Morgan McSweeney going as Chief of Staff yesterday and the Director of Communications, Tim Allen, going this morning. But I think the stability only lasts until the local elections, because if there is a Labour leadership election right now, well, then we're in the situation where they're electing a leader at the same time as trying to persuade people to vote for them at the local elections, which is going badly. We know it's going badly because of the polls. We know it's going badly because of what's happening. Then I think after the 7th of May, also, who wants to be leader to soak up that defeat? Then that all gets pinned on Starmer, and then he probably goes after that. But there was a sort of weird attempt today. Anas Sarwar, the leader of Labour in Scotland, a man very famous in his own family and not really beyond that, attempted to take down Keir Starmer, saying he no longer had confidence in him and thought he should stand down. Probably the most senior figure to have done that. But really, there was no one rallying to his cry. There were very few people who really went with that. So it felt a bit flat. I think Keir Starmer will be probably having a sigh of relief this evening. He's safe, I think, for a short time, possibly as long a time as until the 7th of May. But after that, I think all bets are off.
I actually think it's probably the opposite. I bet Keir Starmer's going, oh, God, do I have to do this for, 4 more months? I've always got the impression he doesn't really enjoy it. But, I mean, they would actually
nobody ever leaves voluntarily. You're right that he's not enjoying it. That's plain to see. But he's not. Nobody ever leaves voluntarily.
That's true, actually. That is very true. But it would make more sense, frankly speaking, to wait until the summer recess, because trying to sort of conduct a leadership election while politics is still live and very much active in the run-up to elections, and not just the local elections, of course, but those devolved governments who, frankly, I mean, basically Wales has been a Labour Party, one-party state ever since the creation of the Senedd. Scotland, a slightly different picture, but, far more left-wing than the other parts of the United Kingdom. And it wouldn't seem to me to make much sense to have this sort of, fisticuffs, political fisticuffs right now. But who would your money be on? Because it's very clear. We know we can see people out of the corner of our eye in our peripheral vision, or just, slap bang straight in front of us, sharpening their knives, getting their websites ready, on manoeuvres, phoning up HMRC saying, can we just expedite that investigation a little bit? We can see that there are people right now salivating at the opportunity to usurp the throne from Sir Keir Starmer. But who would your sort of principal runners and riders be? Because you're much closer to the action than I am.
Well, I'll say there are probably 5 people in for this. I think that Wes Streeting has given all his Peter Mandelson messages to be published today. That means that Wes Streeting has made a calculation that this is going to happen at some stage. He needs to distance himself as much as possible from Peter Mandelson, get that bad publicity, a little bit of ripple of bad publicity out of the way, and then leave him on a clear run. I think that Angela Rayner, as you correctly intimated there, she needs that investigation to HMRC to be concluded for her to pay back her the stamp duty that she should have paid in the first place. That will then presumably go away. Ed Miliband, believe it or not, is a very popular candidate in the Labour Party, with Labour Party members, not certainly with talk viewers and listeners, it must be said, or in the country more generally. but that is the only way that he could become Prime Minister. I think it's highly unlikely he would ever win an election, and certainly didn't in 2025. Then there's Shabana Mahmood, who's not particularly well known really at the moment. There are a few questions about her, and a lot of people who won't like her being, as they would see it in the Labour Party, too right-wing. I'm not sure that too many people in the country would agree with that, but lots in the Labour Party will think that way. Then there is the complete wild card, which is Al Cairns, who is the Defence Minister, who is a really interesting character. He's a war hero. He won the Military Cross for bravery. He commanded the SBS, the Special Boat Service. He was a colonel in the Royal Marines. Really, really interesting guy. Fascinating backstory and a lot of integrity there as well. So I think there are probably 5 likely candidates. There are others who will throw their hat in the ring, most definitely. It will be a very fractious debate. I think people like Bridget Phillips and maybe even Liz Kendall would want to go for that as well, although Bridget Phillipson lost the deputy leadership. So there's a lot to play for. And honestly, I know this sounds bizarre, but honestly, the most likely candidate at the moment is probably Ed Miliband, because you're looking at the people in the Labour Party who would vote for him. You're not. I know, Alex. We're all thinking it. I know you've got your hands to your face at the moment, but actually, I mean, if Ed Miliband becomes Prime Minister of this country, we can always pack up and move to France. But the Labour Party members love him.
Oh gosh, Ed Miliband, I just feel like, I've never looked at a politician before and thought, wow, you actually commit acts of sabotage against your own country, which is what Ed Miliband does.
And himself by eating that bacon sandwich. The bacon sandwich wielding assassin is waiting in the wings.
Oh, it's so weird. Why can't we have normal people in politics? Well, I mean, politics doesn't tend to attract normal people, but it's just
You and I both worked at it, so what does that say?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we know close up that what I said is totally true. It doesn't tend to attract the most normal of characters. But there's one thing about, being a little bit kooky. There's another thing about being like Ed Miliband. But, I mean, with their process of getting a party leader, Isabel was telling me it's a sort of 8 to 12 week process if we're going to be faced with that. Does it work similarly to the Conservatives' machinations? Are there sort of other bolted on bits, because trade unions seem to have a big say? I've no doubt that we'd be blessed with the sort of 5 candidates having a big old spat on live television, which would actually be a great popcorn moment for the likes of us, no doubt, but fairly unedifying for the country, I'd imagine. But does it sort of run on the same rails as the Conservative leadership election, which we all got to know so very intimately?
Not quite, because first of all, you need people to be out there and public in terms of saying that a leadership election should happen. You need 81 people, 80 if it includes the candidate themselves, publicly on the record saying that the Prime Minister or the leader of the party should go. That's not the case in the Conservatives, who have you can put in letters, you never quite know who's knifed you in the back. Also, the Conservatives sort of whittle it down to 2 and then have their contest there. They can also just whittle it down to 1 in the parliamentary party, as they did with Rishi Sunak, for example, getting him across the line very, very quickly. The other set of, and actually that's what happened with Theresa May as well. With Labour, it's far more likely to have more candidates. There will be a long campaign, and there will be votes from all sorts of people. Now, it's slightly different to how it was done for Jeremy Corbyn. The rules changed again. That's part of how Keir Starmer became leader. They changed the rules there. But essentially, within the Labour Party, everybody has a vote. Yes, the unions have a vote as well. The MPs have a vote as well, and it's weighted to a degree. But it would have to be an MP as well. Wouldn't be someone from the House of Lords. So it would be a long campaign. It would really suck up a lot of the oxygen from whatever else the government wants to do and whatever else they want to talk about. So you're right in that the summer after the local elections would be the ideal time to do that for them. That's when they've done it certainly before on a number of occasions. Before the local elections, it doesn't make sense to anybody in Labour. And of course, a lot of those MPs are thinking, how can I avoid a general election as long as possible? Because so many of them will on current polling anyway, lose their seats.
And if Starmer were to be forced out of office, or sort of decides to voluntarily step down, would he sort of do that on a time frame of, look, I'll carry on being Prime Minister up until we have decided who is going to inherit the throne? Or would that be untenable to essentially be, a sort of a Prime Minister who's already, buried alive, so to speak? Would we have to face the likes of David Lammy?
I mean, David Lammy or Ed Miliband. I mean, the choice is a good one. No, I think Starmer would probably do what the Conservatives had done previously, many of them saying, I'm going to resign as leader of the party, so there's a vacancy for that, but stay on as Prime Minister in a sort of caretaker role, not do anything too dramatic or change things dramatically until that contest would end. Because the country needs a Prime Minister, and there will always be a Prime Minister. So in theory, that could go to someone like David Lammy, who's the Deputy Prime Minister, but actually Starmer would almost certainly stay on within that period. He wouldn't express a preference for the candidate he would want to be leader of the Labour Party, and as soon as that person was appointed, well, then they're off to the palace to see the King to change who the Prime Minister is.
If Starmer decided instead to, I don't know, pull an absolute wild card move, which I'd quite respect him if he did, if I'm honest, and turned around and said, right, you know, I'm staying as Prime Minister, but clearly this has not been working, so I need to completely change my front bench. I'm going to get whole new faces, and we're going to take a completely different course of action, because he sort of had a minor reshuffle, which was precipitated by the fact that, you know, various ministers had to go. But there hasn't been a complete overhaul. There hasn't been a sort of a fresh first team. Do you think that could buy him a future?
I think he'll try it, and I think he'll try it after the local elections, or possibly even before. But certainly Morgan McSweeney, who was really pulling the strings in a way that not many chiefs of staff or special advisors really have the opportunity to do so. I mean, there's a fascinating chapter in the best book about Starmer, which is called Get In by Patrick McGuire and Gabriel Pogrund, where it outlines how Morgan McSweeney was sitting in a room with various people, including Lisa Nandy, actually, and basically decided that Keir Starmer was going to be the vehicle by which he did what he wanted to do. So it'll be very interesting to see Starmer without Morgan McSweeney, what he does, which direction he moves in, what kind of change he attempts to implement. He's talked about that today to those MPs and elsewhere as well, in private conversations with people. So it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens. I don't think a reshuffle would happen very soon. And also, every reshuffle creates enemies as well. So who do you get rid of? Wes Streeting has been disloyal on a number of occasions. He's out today as well, not just publishing those messages, but saying that Number 10 is briefing against him and saying that he was the person who was in league with Anas Sarwar, the Labour leader in Scotland, to try to get Starmer out. He says that's nonsense. This has happened before, where he alleges there is Number 10 briefing, and that shouldn't happen. If you got rid of someone like Wes Streeting, you create a very, very big enemy. Also, Angela Rayner today expressing support for Keir Starmer. How long does that last? Once she gets through her HMRC inquiry, once the local elections are over, does she then change her mind and say, actually, no, now is the time for change, and actually we've tried the Starmer strategy for, at that stage, it'll be nearly 2 years. It hasn't worked. Time for something else. By the way, I'm available with my new hairstyle. So there's a lot that could happen, and the moment on any reshuffle should be a moment of maximum power for a Prime Minister, because they are hiring and firing. But you always create enemies, and there can be a lot of danger as a result of those reshuffles.
Oh, there's always a potential for danger and enemies in politics, Peter. Wonderful being able to actually do something with you for once. That's been a real privilege and an honour. You really do know your onions. Thank you ever so much, Peter. Now go and enjoy an evening where you don't have to think about work, although no doubt you're going to be there on X and reading all the papers and boning up ready for tomorrow.